Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Shut Up David series. Today, we've got our third international guest, Elisa Lynch from Ireland. I had to really concentrate on that because otherwise she'd go batshit crazy and have a go at me. Elisa Lynch from Ireland. Well known here in Australia. Actually, probably around the world, to be honest with you, because she's a bit of a social butterfly on the old LinkedIn and podcasts around the world. She doesn't mind jumping on people's podcasts and saying hello, which is probably why I've managed to coerce her to come on here. But let's do the intro. So for those of you who don't know her too well, you get a little bit of a flavor as to who she is. So today we've got the pleasure of speaking with Elisa Lynch, an expert in operational excellence and impactful learning outcomes. With over 15 years of experience in the health and safety sector, Elisa has a passion for bridging the gaps between work as imagined, work as prescribed, and work as done. Really interesting part of safety business. In her previous roles, she successfully overhauled safety management systems, raised safety search ratings, something I will need to ask her about later because I don't know what they are, and established feedback workshops for site teams. She has also been recognized as an industry speaker and a guest on podcasts, Social Butterfly, sharing her insights on organizational learning and safety culture. Elisa's mission is to set people up for success and improve outcomes, one conversation at a time. Super excited to have her on. I've known Elisa for a couple of years now through LinkedIn, and we've been talking over those times. So it's a pleasure to have her come on today to this podcast. Hello, Elisa.
Hello. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself? Not too annoyed with that intro? Was it all good?
No, it's fine. I actually like shit. I need to edit my LinkedIn profile because some of that's waffle.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was or wasn't. I have to ask you though, what is safety cert ratings?
Oh, that's just a construction accreditation here in Ireland. So that's really common. So that's why I have it tucked in there so people can.
Hence why I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah. It's I should probably take that out now. Actually, now that I've moved on from construction, but sure, look.
Just leave it in there to confuse people.
So. Just do what most people do and leave their LinkedIn profile go absolutely stale for years and be like, you don't actually. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I used to do. I mean, not so much anymore because I've got to rely on it a bit more than I used to. But well, anyway, enough waffling on. Welcome again. Thank you for agreeing to come on. I know it's what time is it here? It's nearly 2:30 in the afternoon here, which means it's got to be 8:30 in the morning for you.
7:30.
7:30. See, I knew I'd messed it up somewhere along 7:30. Appreciate you getting up early for this, Lisa. Much appreciated. Why don't we give people a bit of a sense as to, for those people who don't know you already, a bit of a sense as to who you are, how you got into safety, and then we can go from there. How does that grab you?
Yeah, grand.
All right.
So let's keep talking over each other. It'll be great.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just shut up then.
Okay. Well, let me answer the question.
Okay, so, if you could, that'd be great.
Okay, right. We'll.
Oh my God! I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
I get up early for this shit.
Yeah.
So look, I've worked in health and safety now. I suppose health and safety specifically for about 10 years. I started my safety career when I was living in Australia. So I had done a couple of years working in traffic control, traffic management, all that kind of crack. Standard.
It's all on the East Coast, yeah?
Yeah, standard backpacker behavior. And then moved sideways into health and safety in construction. And so dabbled around in that for a couple of years and then moved back to Ireland, stayed in construction. And then I've recently made... I went into consultancy for a short stint and now I'm in pharma. And that's kind of the very shortened version of my...
It is because I know from previous conversations while you were here in Australia and you said you did a side move into safety, whatever, you were very successful at what you were doing at the time, weren't you? And you were getting some good results as well. And it was a bit of bit of a difficult decision as to whether you should stay or whether you should go back, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was difficult in whether I should. Well, no, the decision of whether I should stay in Ireland or stay in Australia or move to Ireland was easy. Because I had never planned to stay in Australia for as long as I did. It was more at the same time I had made a decision to leave safety completely.
Oh, gotcha.
I was ready to jack it in. I was sick to the back teeth of it. So, but then I got home to Ireland and I really struggled to get a job doing anything else. Like, your whole CV is safety. I was like, I don't want to talk about it. And they were like, well, we won't hire you unless this is what you're doing. Like, oh.
Can we just forget about those 3 years? Just put them aside. And
forget about those like 10 years. But yeah, so it's. But yeah, so I ended up staying in safety and actually going back and studying it in college here as well. So yeah.
At what point, like, where were you in your career when you discovered HOP and New View and all those types of things? Did that make a difference to you, or?
It did. It made a huge difference. I was actually probably fairly early on, which I don't know whether that hindered or helped. I was very early on when I started reading the safetyrisk.net blog by Dr. Rob Long. So some people will be familiar with it. Some people love it. Some people loathe it. But yeah, I think I logged on there looking for toolbox talks or safety poster ideas or whatever it was, which was how they'd set up the site to draw people in and then absolutely hammer the shit out of them in terms of, are you a safety professional? You suck. Stop being yourself. You're awful. So, and I was reading this stuff, but there was a lot of ideas on there that I really identified with. That because when I started out in health and safety, like I remember in my first role being up on like level 17 of a high-rise construction site and being told, oh, that guy over there is not wearing XYZ PPE, you need to reinduct him. I was like, what? Like, I don't know anything about this. And definitely it was like, obviously reinduction is a form of punishment. That's what it is. It's nothing other than a clip around the ear. So it was just
patronizing as well, isn't it?
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible for everyone involved. It's horrible for the person doing it. If you have a soul, it's horrible for the person on the receiving end of it. But I remember just thinking, this is wild that I'm the one telling this guy in his 50s, of like, just so you know, the rules are blah.
Yeah. He's probably been working construction for the past 35 years or something, and then there's you waddling over and going, you've not got your high-vis vest on, or whatever it is. Come and be reinducted because you're obviously stupid.
Yeah, and so I was reading all these, I suppose, criticisms of my new job. And a lot of it I identified with. So I kind of really struggled then to enjoy it. I was trying to learn and trying to improve, but everybody that I was learning from was very much in that mindset of, but sure, this is just how we do it and this is how it's always been done.
Yep.
And funnily enough, that company that I worked for at the time ended up getting a buddy of Rob Long's to come in and do this 5-day training course. Now, they were like, oh, we have this training course with a guy called Rob Sams. And I was like, do you know what he does? Do you understand what you're paying for?
Are you sure you want him to come in? Are you sure?
And they did not. They did not understand. And it was brilliant. But we this guy come in being like, so guys, have you heard of semiotics? And do you understand the power of the safety poster on the wall that says, don't want to wear glasses, fancy losing an eye, like all this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And they were like, sure, that's a great poster. We love our posters. And he was like, but do you not get the subliminal messaging, all this stuff? And they didn't. And even after 5 days, I think it was like a day spread out over 5 weeks or whatever. And they were all like, I didn't get much from that training course. Now I don't think it was great. I was like, you were never going to get anything from it.
Yeah.
But
so why did they do it then? Like, was
it
just because it was a new trend? It was
probably marketed, well, I don't know, but probably something around like safety culture or whatever. I don't think they read the fine print or the background, because it was definitely touched obviously a lot on culture. But it was too in the weeds for them, I think. But it definitely further put me on this path of like, nothing that I think, feel, or believe about this job is what's happening on the ground. But I continued on anyway, and I kind of moved up the ranks and kind of went, safety advisor, coordinator, manager, whatever. And then once I got into my first health and safety management role, I had seen an ad for a workshop called Safety Differently. And at this point, it was actually insert Daniel Hummerdahl. I think he was the guy presenting it. And I remember just thinking, right, sure, I'll give this a go. It can't be worse than any other shite that's going around. And I remember being in the room and thinking, this is all great. It'll fucking never catch on.
Yeah.
I thought, this is brilliant, but how do we implement it? This is so cool, but my boss is going to be like, sorry, what have you been doing for the last day? And where's my ROI on this?
Yeah.
Of which I did not have an answer. So yeah, that's kind of, so that was probably around 2015, 2016. And so I parked it because I thought the ideas were great, but I thought that it wouldn't take off. And I thought that the safety industry wouldn't get to grips with it. Yeah. And then I really had the whole, I really feel like this, but the jobs are all like this.
Yep.
And I couldn't match it. And that's when I was like, fuck it, I'm out. I'm going, I think I did a barista course at one stage, so it wasn't very good. Like, yeah, money was shocking. But yeah.
Anything to get out of safety.
It really was at that point, anything to get out of safety. So yeah. And then I moved back to Ireland and I went into a traditional role again and just kind of kept trucking on from there. But I suppose the more I engaged with people on LinkedIn and made LinkedIn friends and started having the chats and whatever, I kind of figured out my own way of how to integrate, I suppose, some of these things into how I work versus overhauling everything.
And where did you start with that? So like, what were some of the key principles or tools that you thought, okay, well, I can use some of them and slowly creep them in?
Yeah, well, I suppose there was a lot of it. Some of it I would be doing naturally anyway. Such as, I don't know, giving a shit about people.
How dare you give a crap about people?
And that's not to say that people who use any different type of method or framework don't. But I would have always been quite chatty, quite engaged with the people doing the work, all that kind of stuff. So that came naturally to me. When it was like, go do some operational learning, I was like, all right, I'll just go out and ask the lads what they're up to. Like, that side of things would never have fazed me. But it was really around the language piece of planting seeds of ideas in conversations that I was having with, company leaders, things like that. That's kind of where I decided to start. It just kind of started happening.
Yeah, it just came naturally.
The company I was working for at the time had 3 directors, and one of them, he was kind of like really over operations, and we worked quite closely together. So we would often have conversations where I'd come in and be like, oh, I'm so frustrated, or, oh, I heard this on a podcast, what do you think? And he'd be like, sure, give it a go. So like I was lucky in that I worked for somebody who was really open,
Yeah, Reggie.
and then he started to take on some of the language, like I
Gotcha.
remember like walking past an open door of his office one day and hearing him talking about setting subcontractors up for success. I nearly did like a little happy dance in the corridor. Woohoo! It's happening. Like that took 6 months of just conversations.
Yeah.
So like it's a really, really slow burn. Well, it was for me anyway.
Yeah. But I mean, at least you had at least one of the senior management team that was there supporting you, and but it's so, and it's been the same with all the guests that I've had on here, from my experience beforehand as well. It is possible to work locally if the organization is big enough to be able to have little pockets of rebellion, as it were, that are far enough away from the senior leaders to be able to influence it. But if it's a smaller company, that becomes harder and harder. But you really need that senior level engagement. You need them to be proactive with the change itself, and for them to help change the culture and the language, like you said. Even changing, for me, at one point, even changing the name of a form from an incident investigation form to a learning opportunity. I had hoops and red tape to deal with just to change that, and it was like, it's the same. We're capturing the same information as, but it's an incident, and we need to make sure that people take it serious. And it's like, no, it's an opportunity to learn. It's a seismic shift for some people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is definitely. And look, I was lucky in the fact that I was in a smaller business and I had complete control over every single document. He was like, change whatever you want to change. Now there was probably an element of like, okay, Elisa, like if you change this from an accident report form to an event review or whatever, is there going to be a seismic shift? Probably not. So he was probably like, go for your life. I don't think he was too bothered. Part of it was probably like, just go and do. Please stop.
Let's get out of my office if you've got to change.
I don't care what podcast you listen to, but but like there's, I suppose, with a lot of stuff I'd been hearing and listening about as well, they were all in much bigger organizations. It was all like the Origins or Chevrons, whoever, who had like astronomical budgets, which I think can often feel like then it's not for us, it's not for the small players, and it's not for small businesses. And I actually think the complete opposite, because I think when you're smaller, you actually have, you can easily get to more parts of the business. You can access people easier. There's less, I suppose, barriers to change. Though it is very personal. Then it's because when we go, that's shit, you're like, oh, that's a personal attack on me. Great, but thanks, Bob. See you in the canteen at lunchtime. But, it's and I suppose that's where I really see the value in we'll say podcasts and the conversations and the sharing on LinkedIn, is to show that anyone can kind of give this stuff a go. You don't have to be in a huge organization to implement some of these really small changes.
Yeah, Richard. Well, it's before churches that you mentioned that I was going to ask you, you seem to rely quite heavily on LinkedIn and the information. So if someone's listening to this for the first time, they're in your situation, they're a safety leader within an organization, be it small, be it large, whatever. And what are some of the resources, and we're going to talk about your particular podcast as well in a moment, but what are some of the resources specifically for LinkedIn that you use and you still use today, to help keep informed about contemporary safety practices?
The reason, like, people are not resources, but people, like, it's having conversations. And actually, that same boss that I was talking about earlier, that he was the one who really pushed me on LinkedIn and pushed me to network and pushed me. He was like, because I was like, oh, safety's lonely. He was like, well, go make some fucking friends then. Like, I was like, that's a solution, isn't it? So he really pushed me, and I ended up going to a conference. It lined up really, really well. The first IOSH conference I ended up going to was organised by a woman called Marion Kiley, and she had engaged Nippon and And to come and do a keynote. She'd what's his name? Kevin something. He used to be with Maersk. He came and did a thing about safety differently. It was incredible. I think it was the first and only safety differently styled conference that happened in Ireland, because I think like 2 weeks later COVID hit. But I ended up connecting with all these people and then following their stuff on LinkedIn and getting involved in conversations. And that really was the catalyst then from there. And I've since, like, I've traveled to meet these people. I was like, hey, let's meet in real life. And it's been amazing. It's been an absolute game changer. I know people give out about LinkedIn and, oh, it's toxic and, oh, there's so many debates and whatever. But I think it is kind of what you make of it as well. Yep. And it's an incredible platform to be able to connect with people that otherwise I wouldn't be where I am today without it. There's no doubt.
So I've
made real lifelong friends from it.
Yeah, right. Only in Ireland or across the world?
No, across the world.
Yeah, right. There's people I talk to as well that I don't think I would ever have met. I don't think when I go to different countries and stuff like that, they say, oh, pop in, drop by, UK, Brazil, some in America. It's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? And, a lot of them as well, I've actually had the chance to meet when they've been traveling through. And, there's the Safety Differently book club that I've got here in Perth, and Steve and Josh have on the East Coast. I know you were looking at, did you manage to get something in Ireland up and running or not?
I set up a LinkedIn group. So I had spoke to a few people of like, okay, do we want a group? Do we want a book club? Do we want to meet up? And I had kind of surveyed a few people, and everyone was like, LinkedIn group. So that was fine. Set up a LinkedIn group. And Jesus, they're hard to get traction going. It's really hard to get engagement going. And then I ended up having one kind of Zoom meetup, and to be fair, she's about 10 or 15 people turned up. It was great. And then I ended up leaving my role and taking a couple of months out, and I really fucking disconnected from LinkedIn, from networking, from all of it, which when you're looking for a new job is not the best move. But anyway, I was just not engaged in that space in terms of the learning and build a community, all that kind of stuff. And so I really left it drop. And I think those kind of things, they need somebody to be absolutely driving it all of the time. You have to be there to like every post, to comment on everything, to push it. And then I wasn't, and it really dropped off. Now the group is still there, and it still has like 80 or 90 members or something. So I just need to get my shit together and get back on it and be like, hi, I'm back. Ignore all those tumbleweeds for the last year. But I still want to do the same thing. So we'll see.
Yeah, right. Okay. It's difficult, isn't it? And I hear you. I'm going through the same thing at the moment as well, trying to build up stuff, with my website, with YouTube channel. And I'm currently posting, between 2 and 4 videos a week, but that's only because I've taken some time off work, and you've got to build that momentum. And people think, oh, I'll just put videos up, or I'll just put a group up, and if I build it, people will come.
They will come.
But they don't. And even if they do come, it's no guarantee that they're going to engage with it, and they're going to use it with exactly the same intent that you had in mind anyway. It's almost just like, okay, you've got to build it and then give it over to them. Because they're gonna do whatever they want to do, and it's hard work. It's hard work. I hear you, and it does take that constant motivation and constant time at it as well. But fair dues for giving it a crack and starting off. So I suppose as a bit of a takeaway from that, if anyone is listening to this and wants to start building connections in the safety contemporary thing, it's just to start. Just go out there and start and see who some of the players are, and find out who local players are, and actually just start making those connections and those bridges.
Yeah, and it's when you connect with someone on LinkedIn, message them. Like, don't just do this weird hanging out in the background thing where you just connect and then never ever interact, because the interaction is where the connection happens. That's what.
I
And it
love
can
that.
feel
I love that.
it can feel really uncomfortable, but it's even just like, hiya, how's things? Really like the few things that you've posted. Hope to see more of your stuff on my feed. That's
Yeah.
it. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy. Or like, what I love doing, and people hate it. I know they hate it, but I will constantly. People will add me, and then they'll be like radio silence. Or if I had a guy add me the other day, we'd no connections. I was like, are you for real? So I messaged him. I was like, hi, why did you want to connect?
Yeah.
And I'll just
Yeah, no,
answer.
I hear you.
And to be fair, he was like, oh yeah, I work in sales, but I'm just moving into health and safety and I need connections. I was like, cool, I'm your first one. Let's go. Grant.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll chat back and forth. But you have to start a conversation with, otherwise nothing happens.
It does. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I can show you my LinkedIn messages. And if I send the invites out and the person accepts, I always 90% of the time, if I'm not flat sticking, I remember, thank you very much for connecting. It's great to be part of your group, blah, blah, blah. David. Even just something simple like that. And it may be like, on your phone, the predictive texting knows you're going to do it. And it takes 5 seconds. But then at least you've acknowledged that the person has gone out of their way to accept it, that LinkedIn request. And if someone sends an invite to me, my response is, if I accept, thank you very much for the connection request. Appreciate you reaching out. I look forward to seeing your posts in my feed, purely because it's like someone walking past you on the street and saying good day or saying hello, and you just kind of going and completely ignoring them and walking past. Oh yeah, he's my mate. Well, why don't you say anything? It's you have to start somewhere, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Why don't we bring up talking about connections? Let's bring up your podcast, which is on YouTube, called Speak.
Yeah.
36 videos on there. What kind of topics can people expect to find when they go into your YouTube podcast?
Oh, it's a broad range. So the Speak podcast YouTube channel, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that kind of stuff as well. It's a podcast that I have with Crystal Danbury, who we met through connections on LinkedIn, and now we're real life friends. We fly back and over, go on the beer, we have a podcast. So this works, people. Like, do the connecting. But yeah, so many topics. It's really, I suppose, about just ourselves and our experience in the workplace. It's not a lot of it is our safety related, but we've done quite a few. We did 2 on suicide. We've done pride. We've done difficult conversations.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've done. We did one like about looks. So like, do your looks affect how people perceive you in the workplace? All that kind of thing. Menopause, new view. Like, yeah, quite
Work
a few.
friends all paid and go. What was this one about?
Work friends are paid and go. Okay, so Crystal had, I think, seen a post on LinkedIn, and it was one of these things of like, yeah, it's like, do you just clock off at 5 o'clock kind of a thing? Gotcha. Or do you, like, yeah, I suppose, how invested are you? And it was that chat back and forth between, I was like, yeah, I'm invested while I'm there, but at 5 o'clock, I am out the fucking gate. And it's that I suppose, thing of how the expectation around people's commitments to their work. And yeah, for me, it can be a difficult one, because a lot of my identity is tied up in my work and in what I do.
Yep.
And so I don't mentally switch off at 5 o'clock. But I find I have to really make the effort to draw those boundaries. and how that can be perceived in a workplace of like, oh, well, she's at 5 o'clock every day, she's gone. And then
Yeah,
it's
clock watcher. I think they call them or something, don't they?
what?
Call them clock watchers or something, don't they?
Yeah. But it's like, well, then can you be perceived as not being so committed then?
Yes.
So, yeah. And then it's like, oh, but we're a family at our workplace. Like, you're not a family, you're paid to be there, so don't be ridiculous. And like, and I could go on a whole other thing of that, but I won't. So,
There's quite a lot of different topics on here, isn't there?
yeah.
Safety. Obviously, there's psychology between work performance expectations and work performance commitment.
Mhm.
There is other things there that you mentioned in relation to oppression, potentially around, the pride sort of stuff and people's sexuality. And what's the key theme or key value that pulls all these together? Because safety is obviously in there as well, but it's seeming a lot bigger than just about safety.
Yeah, it's kind of evolved into, it's just this like a space where we want to be open, we want to be honest, and we want to learn. And it's mostly about the workplace and how we interact at work. So it's not just safety. But obviously a lot of the guests we've had on come from the safety sphere because that's our network. But they will come on. We've now a thing called the speak seat. So the speak seat is open to anyone who wants to come on. And what do you want to speak about? The only conditions are that it's unedited. So the conversation goes out as is, which, there's been a few times I've said something and I've just gone, oh, fuck, that's not going to come across well. But sure, look, it is what it is. And because the idea is not about it being perfect. The idea is about a genuine conversation. And so, yeah, it goes out unedited and that it's about the conversation. So we don't really speak about who we work for or where we work. We obviously draw on our experiences, but it's not about big fancy job title, big fancy brand. It's about learning and yeah,
talking to people, having communications and learning about their life and how they view things, and that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really good actually. We one of our probably most watched or listened to downloaded episodes, we did one with Suneet Atwell, and it was about the narcissism of safety.
I remember seeing that. Where was that? Menopause. There was one I saw with the word narcissism in it.
Yeah, we just gone past it there.
Here it is.
Purpose, deviation, and narcissism.
Yeah. Purpose, deviation, and safety narcissism. Safety narcissism, what is that? People using safety as a way of beating other people down or as a way of trying to build themselves up?
No, it's about us being obsessed with ourselves. Everything is safety, safety, safety. Safety is the most important. Safety is like a safety walk.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, this kind of everything just being about us and our role and our function in the business, and I suppose using that moral high ground as a stick to beat people with.
Gotcha.
From memory, that conversation, but it's a while ago. So,
and how important the function of safety is, and how everyone needs to be reminded all the time as to how wonderful we are. Even though we don't make anything, we don't produce any money, we don't really have any direct impact on the operations. Well, we should do, but we don't have as much direct impact on the operations. But you're right. There are, and I've had this conversation with a few people. There is a subsect of the profession, the practice, whatever you want to call it, that has taken huge liberties with some of the power that they've been given over the time, and they've absolutely destroyed the reputation that safety's had in certain industries. And I know you've had experience here in Australia as well, and you'll have seen that firsthand. Firsthand as well. But I also like, and I wanted to loop this back in because I like to remember, I like to try and remember things that people say which really resonate with me. And what you said before about, oh God, I like to remember If I can remember. Yeah. It was something that you mentioned that Clive Lloyd and I were talking about just the other day as well. It'll come back to me. I'll stop being an idiot, and it'll probably come back to me at some point. So anyway, so what happens now with Elisa? You've got all this experience. You obviously got these values which are more in line with communication as a meta thing and sharing knowledge, which really, I mean, idealistically, that's the perfect kind of motivator for safety, isn't it? But what happens now with Elisa?
What happens now? I'm currently in a compliance role, so it's straight compliance, and
that's 180 from what we've just been talking about.
Literally, yeah. And it's I hope my boss doesn't end up listening to this. She probably won't. Be fine, and I won't tell her about it. But it's
I'll email her directly. What's her name?
She'll be like, hello. But it's kind of an experiment.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I'm calling it spicy compliance. But
spicy compliance.
I was like, okay, can I take a role as a compliance? Can you hear that?
That's
my
all good.
My fucking dog is. I knew he'd do this. I was like, he's not in, and now he's in. He's cracking at the door, and he's like, "Are you talking to someone without me in the room?"
Let him in.
No, because he's been outside and it's raining, and he'll just be stinking, so he can stay. He can stay there.
Yeah, copy.
Anyway, so my compliance role, and it's within pharma, so it is. There's no wriggle room on any of this stuff. But I still
there's no sense of humor about not breaking about those rules, have they?
Oh Jesus, there's no like honestly, some even like in terms of comms, some of the stuff I would say in construction, you can't say it, like you cannot. Yeah, so it's very different. So it's really challenging me in that way, but I just want to see where can I fold in some of the new view concepts or ideas and just do a little, it's just a little push. I'm taking the idea of planting seeds to this whole other thing of like, I don't know how fertile the soil is. That's my issue. But it's
like you've sat down with a cup of tea or maybe even a bottle of wine and gone, how can I make this as difficult as possible for myself? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go and work in pharma. No sense of humor about rules and laws, and I work in compliance. Is there anything else I can do to make it 10 times harder? I think you've pretty much achieved it.
Yeah, but no, and I'm very new in, and it's a maternity leave cover role, so it's short tour duty. I'm there until middle of next year, so we'll see. But I'm already like, it's so interesting. It's actually, and it's so much. I'm enjoying it so much because.
Really? Did you think you would?
I was dubious. I was like, oh Jesus, have I really put myself in a situation where like I am not suited to this? But it turns out, lads, maybe compliance just needed a bit of personality as well. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Who knows? So how long have you been there now?
It's just hit the 3-month mark. So.
And have you started yet, or are you still formulating your method of attack?
I started fucking day one. What is the purpose of this process? Like, what? Like, why do we do this? Like, we must comply with this rule. Okay, why the rule? It's simple. Like, just because.
So this is your works imagined versus work is done. It's like your mindset when you're going into this, going, is this needed, or is it just bureaucratic surplus to requirements?
Yeah, and like it does, like, so definitely people have an idea about compliance that like there's no wriggle room, or it has to be X or it has to be Y, and it's like, well, yeah, if X has to be there in the first place.
Yep, gotcha.
It's like, and it goes back to, is it regulatory compliance? And grant, the answer is very straightforward. But if it's internal compliance, and especially like in pharma, you've regulatory compliance. Obviously, then you've your client compliance. Like, there's just so much of it.
Yeah.
But so it's really trying to drill down and see where can we
Yeah.
shake them up.
Yeah. Josh Bryan, he was on a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about the same thing, because being a drilling contractor, he basically sits in the least enviable spot. He's got these clients that are multinational, BHP, Rio, whatever they are, and he's just a contractor to them, and he's constantly trying to educate and communicate with them and stay in line with the law and the regs, from the mining side of things, try and appease what the client wants as well, and also try and buffer what happens to all his people at the same time. So there was this constant battle that he goes through. But have you got or read Greg Smith's book, Paper Safe?
I am the biggest champion of that book. Oh my God.
It's great, isn't it? It's great. Yeah. And I remember a particular piece in that book, just looping back to what you were talking about all the regulatory and legal kind of stuff. And I think it was that book, I'm sure it was that book, where he talks about he's done a review, or there was a review done. I don't think it was by him, and found out that at least 50 or 60% of the safety work that an organization had built up over time wasn't even mandated, wasn't legislated. It was just something that they put on top of what, they brought it in because they thought that that's what the regulators wanted to see. But the actual benchmark and the requirement, the legal requirement, is actually so much less than what all the bump that everyone built on top of it. Is that what you're finding?
In some parts, I suppose it depends. And under my remit, I have health, safety, and environment, and where the health and the environment aren't actually just tacked on; they're like legit.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, "Oh God, I've lots to do." Better go learn about the environment. Like it's so yeah, there's the bar for a lot of those things are quite high, whereas in construction they would have been quite low, I guess, is the thing. But for me, it's even okay, so we've identified all the non-negotiable stuff, all the non-negotiable things. How do we communicate that in a way that is not like we just have to do it just because? We just have to do it because that's the rule. Like, yes, that is the rule, and the rule isn't going away. But like, surely there's some value there in terms of like there has to be a reason that is beyond just because. And if we can communicate that, then surely you would hope you get some bit more buy-in, or that compliance will improve.
Yeah, even if they don't get rid of it.
Tell me why I have to do it, and I might be more likely to do it.
Yeah, even if they don't get rid of it, like you just said, then more to your point, actually opening it up and having that conversation where make people realize why we need it, why we have it, and they'll go, oh, okay, well, I do need to do it then. Let's bring it out, dust it off, and actually start doing that, because it is important, by the way, and we just hadn't discussed it.
Yeah. And like, now, in fairness, in pharma, you're kind of, in terms of people following rules and things like that, you're kind of pushing on an open door. It's very much embedded anyway, versus construction. They are worlds apart, but there's still huge room for play.
Yeah, copy that. Just as a context setting, and you don't have to say if you don't want to, because I know, we're talking a little bit about where you work. How large is the organization you work for?
So they have a global presence. They've probably 5 or 6 sites dotted around the world. I'm in the Cork site. So yeah, there's quite a few different.
So what goes on there? You got manufacturing, you got distribution,
manufacturing.
Both. Manufacturing. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well, if it's all right with you, if we can tee you up again in a couple of weeks or a month, so you can come back and give us some feedback on how your sneaky little initiatives and you're changing the language and all that kind of stuff goes on. How you're progressing with that?
Yeah. I'll come back in 6 months' time. You're like, scratch that, lads. Got nowhere. Absolutely ran up against the brick wall. But look, and even if that is the case,
New View doesn't work.
There's no evidence for this shit. But But I suppose even if I do run up against a brick wall, or if I don't, no, like a year and a bit is a very, very short period of time in terms of how long this stuff takes.
Especially
So,
given the difficulty of the environment that you've put yourself
yeah.
into as well.
But I just think it's a cool experiment. And if I can implement some of it, that'll be class. And if I can't, I'll learn. So happy days.
And then if you do end up working for an organization that proactively actually want to do something, then you won't get as much pushback, and it'll be easier for you to be able to actually do those things anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Now I know there's another woman in a business nearby that she had messaged me. She was like, "Oh, she's doing their like a branded version, I suppose, their her company's brand of hop in a pharma environment." So and the fact that we're both in Cork, I'm like, this is amazing. So I need to get on to her and be like, tell me all your
yeah. I'll buy the coffee. Can we sit down and have a little bit of a discussion about this?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Elisa, it's been awesome talking to you again, and it's been a while since we caught up, and I know you've been busy and you've had your own things going on as well, but I really do appreciate you taking time out. I know it's early there in the morning, so just want to say thank you so much again. Really is appreciated. I'm going to make sure that the link to your podcast is in the description below. Is it all right if I put a link to your LinkedIn profile as well? So if anyone's listening to this and they go, "Oh, be awesome to reach out, I can share this, or maybe I can get some insights from you from there," I'll put your LinkedIn profile down there as well. And yeah, I mean, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. If you could hang around while I stop recording, just so we can catch up briefly afterwards. But thank you so much again.
Thanks for having me.
Let me drop you down out of here. And that was Elisa Lynch, all the way from Ireland, coming onto the YouTube channel to share her journey. She, crikey, doesn't do things the easy way with regards to setting herself up for that challenge she's got ahead. But like she said, I think there's going to be lots of things that she's going to learn, things that do work, things that don't work. It sounds like it's a super complex environment. So if you've got any ideas, any feedback, if you've been in similar situations and you know what might work, and you can offer some advice, or you can share some stories with her, she's a great person. I'm sure she will reach out and listen to you and share some stories with you as well. But hopefully, as she said, in a couple of months' time, we'll get her back on to be able to give everyone an update as to what she has and hasn't been able to do. But thank you again, everybody, for watching. Very much appreciated, and I'll see you at the next episode.